Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to share with you the Year 2 Gray Matter Literacy Update. We've made some tremendous progress in seeing how our student outcomes are responding to this new material that we have created. So thank you for turning in your annual testing reports. They are absolutely essential for us to receive if we are going to continue to evaluate program credibility and implementation fidelity. So let's take a look at Year 2 Gray Matter Literacy student outcomes. Just as a quick overview reminder, in 2002, we began or launched the Gray Matter Literacy. And then for the full year, 2002 through 2023, approximately 122 students participated in the first research evaluation outcomes. And then this past school year, 2023 to 2024, we nearly doubled that, which really makes sense if you think about it. 237 students were included in the sample size. So we took the Year 1 students and then added Year 2 students. Remember, these are students who have only had Gray Matter Literacy, have not had any Blue Book. So we're really looking at a distinct group of students. Are 237 students a solid sample size? Absolutely. Would we like to see Year 3 students have an even larger sample size, triple or quadruple? Yes. So here again is another shameless ask. Please turn in your annual student testing information. Similar to Year 1 students, there were 52% of the sample size males. Year 1, we had 51%. So again, very close. We're looking at apples to apples comparison, Year 1 to Year 2. Average age in Year 2 was age 12. Makes sense again, because our 11-year-olds, which was our average year for last year, have moved up in this second year. Average number of sessions in this sample size is 237. Just as a quick comparison to the year before, it was around, 73 sessions. It was around 71 sessions. So what data did we collect? Again, we're using the Woodcock-Johnson achievement test, looking specifically at the reading subtests. So you can see the reading subtests there listed: letter word, spelling, passage comprehension, word attack, oral reading, sentence fluency, reading recall, vocabulary, and then taking the composition or the compilation of those reading subtests to generate that broad reading score. Over on the right-hand side of the slide, you see this label of categories. We took our sample size of those 237 students, again, about half and half, male and female, 12-year-olds, looking at the overall sample size, but then we divided it into some categories. We looked at the 25th percentile. So we looked at, from those 237 students, how many of those students would fall in that 25th percentile of lowest reading ability. So we disaggregated, pulled out from that 237, a subpopulation of that lowest quartile of our readers. We also took a look at IQ and said, how are students who have at least a 15-point discrepancy in their IQ responding to reading achievement outcomes based on NILD educational therapy using the Gray Matter Literacy? Something new that we did this year, two new things we did this year, is we took a look at some psychological constructs, 3 constructs in particular. And you'll remember this when you completed that annual testing form. You gave us some feedback on attention, on motivation, as well as engagement. And we wanted to understand, how are these psychological constructs, if at all, impacting our students' reading outcomes? And then, very important, in Year 2, we wanted to look at Blue Book reading outcomes using the Woodcock-Johnson and Gray Matter Literacy outcomes. So let's dive a little deeper. Let me just explain this screen to you here. It's divided into quadrants. You'll see at the top 2, Year 1 and Year 2. And then you've got some labels on the left. You've got P at the top and then effect size. P has to do with statistical significance. Basically, what research is saying, gold standard in research is that if you can achieve a 0.05 or greater statistical significance, you can be confident as a researcher, as a consumer of research, that the intervention was the determinant that was making the effect or the outcome happen for whatever dependent variable was being studied. And in this case, it's all the reading achievement scores that we're looking at. What's very exciting, denoted by colors blue and gold on these circles and the p-value for year 1 and year 2, the NILD research outcomes exceeded that 0.05 significant level that's at the gold standard for research, with a 0.01 and a 0.001 with those blue circles. You can see that the blue circle in year 1 spelling and then in sentence fluency achieved statistical significance at the 0.01. And look at all of those gold circles. What that's indicating to us is that there is less than a 1 in 1,000 chance that these students' reading outcomes were impacted by anything other than what we did in NILD educational therapy using that gray matter literacy. So look at year 1, we had 2 at the 0.01 level. Year 2, the statistical significance, only reading vocabulary was just at that 1 in 100 chance that it was something other than educational therapy that made an impact. But all of the rest of our scores achieved statistical significance. So that's great. That's what the hardcore researchers look for. But as practitioners, we also are looking for effect size, which is what those 2 bottom pie charts are reflecting. If you remember from our conversations in the past about research and effect size, treatment effect size says, can we see an observable, measurable difference to our eye when we're watching this reader, when the classroom teacher is observing how they're doing with spelling, with decoding, with vocabulary, reading vocabulary. And so treatment effect size are measured in increments of small, medium, and very large. And typically within the education sector, small treatment effect sizes are considered big gains, big wins, so to speak. So you can see in year 1, when we launched Gray Matter Literacy, we had some great small treatment effect sizes from passage comprehension to letter word. But then look, we were starting to see reading recall, broad reading, sort of that overall score being in that medium treatment effect size. Then as we move over to year 2, guess what? Our students are gaining ground. They're making even more progress with their reading achievement. We've got spelling now in that medium treatment effect size. Spelling is one of the hardest reading abilities to really improve, and it's improving over time. Look at word attack. That's those basic decoding skills. Very large treatment effect size. What's important to note about this slide is that this is for the whole sample. So in that sample, remember, we've got students performing at the 25th percentile for reading ability. We've got students with an IQ discrepancy of more than 15 points in this sample as well. So then we wanted to take a look and say, well, okay, for our most vulnerable, struggling readers, what do our reading outcomes look like? Well, here you go. For our 25th percentile, you can see it again, statistically significant across the board. But look at this. We're getting lots more of those gold circles that tell us, you know what? There is such a narrow chance that something other than NILD educational therapy and gray matter literacy are having an impact on our students' reading outcomes. And then take a look at effect size. Look at year 1 compared to year 2. We're getting some large and very large treatment effect size. Look at this with our most vulnerable readers. Their broad reading score is moving into that just large treatment effect size. And word attack, our decoding, says that those vulnerable readers, we can really see their changes in their decoding ability. And the students can see their changes in their decoding ability as well. So I hope you are as encouraged as I am as I see this 25th percentile, our most struggling readers, really making significant gains year 2 with the gray matter literacy. So now we took a look at IQ category, and we broke them down, the IQ categories, into low average, average, and high average. You can see that effect sizes, we've got large, medium, and small. And what's very exciting to me is that for our lower average IQ students, look at that, a large treatment effect size. That needle is moving significantly for our slower learners. Average, which is usually our sweet spot for educational therapy, our students who have average to above average IQ, we've got a really solid medium treatment effect size. And then high average, you would anticipate that the treatment effect size is going to be a little bit smaller because these students usually don't have as big a gap in some of their skill sets. So again, we're seeing that statistical significance over there in that right-hand circle there at the 0.001 level, 1 in 1,000 chance that it's something other than educational therapy, and that treatment effect size large, medium, and small. So very encouraging. All right, now we wanted to take a look and say, okay, for years we used the Blue Book, measuring, checking out how our students are doing with accomplishing reading skills. 2 years ago, we transitioned to the gray matter. How do these two techniques compare to one another? For your reference, the Blue Book student outcomes are a completely different sample. So these are students who may have had educational therapy for 3, 4, 5 years, may have been working with PCETs who had been giving educational therapy for a decade or 2 decades. Our gray matter students, again, these are either first year or second year students new to the program who may or may not have been working with a PCET. And so it's not as clean a comparison as apples to apples. That's why it is essential that we finish year 3 of our gray matter literacy research study so that we can have a really clean comparison between the two groups. But I think you'll be encouraged just even looking at these scores. So we were looking at the numbers that you see in these 2 columns is the overall average change in scores between pre-test and post-test. So let's just take an example. For the reading subtest, that first one of letter word reading, students were assessed in letter word reading in that Blue Book group, and they got a particular score for pre-test. Then for their post-test, they were 3.14 points higher as a group in their post-test score than they were in their pre-test. Well, look at gray matter literacy, more than doubled in their post-test score with a 7-point increase between when they took it at the beginning and when they took it either annual to annual testing or their initial testing to annual testing. Look at spelling. Doubled as well between pre-test and post-test. You can see all of those all the way through broad reading, which again is a composite of those reading subtest scores, were higher in gray matter compared to Blue Book. Now, I hope you're thinking in your mind, now, Kristin, what's going on? Reading recall, oral reading. Why are we not seeing as much changes? Again, the scores are very close, 8.14 in reading recall for Blue Book, 7.82 in gray matter. Would it be statistically significant? Maybe, maybe not. Certainly the oral reading, 5.73 and 5.50, much closer, but probably not statistically significant. It makes us wonder, makes us always think, how can we be more prescriptive in what we're doing in our therapy sessions with students to make sure all of those reading abilities are improving. And we've been working hard getting ready for summer training and next year training to really reinforce the use of SOAR 2 and SOAR 3 so that we're not spending overabundance of time in those early literacy skills, especially for year 2 and year 3 students, We need to be moving them up through vocabulary, reading comprehension, and really getting those higher level, higher order reading skills worked on in our sessions as well. But again, great outcomes, seeing that gray matter really is a powerful tool in the hands, your hands, working with your students. Then we wanted to take a look at, again, this quadrant looking at statistical significance and effect size. Again, you can see lots of gold circles in that p-value, statistical significance, between gray matter and blue book. Again, we want to make sure that reading vocabulary, we're really pushing that with our gray matter opportunities and SOAR 2 as we're thinking of morphology, as we're working on building an understanding of those basic units of meaning within a word, having lots of opportunities to incorporate that in sessions with students. And then treatment effect size. We've got a very large treatment effect for word attack with gray matter, really making a meaningful impact. For some of you who've been with NILD for a while, you can remember when we made this transition to gray matter literacy. And one of the reasons we did is that we had an outside researcher come, spend several days with us, watching lots of educational therapy sessions and educational therapists, just pouring through our materials and saying there was an opportunity to boost up some of those basic decoding skills in our students. Again, you might remember that study that was published looking at OG, Orton Gillingham, and NILD. And what that early study found was that OG had a little better outcomes in reading, decoding skills, some of the basic skills, and NILD was stronger in the reading comprehension. Well, with gray matter, and those were two of the main reasons that we were beginning to make the changes to gray matter literacy. Well, guess what? We've answered that opportunity to increase our ability to improve our students' basic decoding reading outcomes with the gray matter literacy. But we're always trying to discover how can we be better at reaching our students in their learning development. And we know it's not just achievement with learning skills, but also those non-cognitive pieces come in. What about those psychological constructs? Let me just pause here and let you take a minute to look at the 25th percentile. We broke down that category as well, looking at blue book and gray matter. You can see our most vulnerable readers. Again, word attack, very strong. And then we've got large treatment effect sizes for broad reading, that composition there in that bottom right-hand quadrant. But now taking a look at the psychological constructs, motivation, attention, and engagement, and how are they driving reading achievement outcomes? So take a moment and just absorb this slide. I know it can seem like there's a lot going on here. Look at motivation first, that bottom right point in the triangle. You can see arrows coming out of motivation leading to attention and leading to engagement. So motivation is a key construct that impacts both attention and engagement. And we were looking at here the individual relationship of these three constructs on overall reading achievement, which is that far right circle with the book inside. And then we also wanted to look at was there a cumulative effect, a relationship between all three of these constructs that maybe would impact our students' reading achievement. So yes, motivation impacts attention, motivation impacts engagement, but then look, attention also impacts engagement. But what we found is that to the degree that engagement was increased by 1 unit, look at the arrow off to the right. For every 1 unit of increase in how you perceived your students' engagement, there was a 4.25 increase in broad reading achievement scores in our students. That is significant. What does this say to us? It says, yes, the science of us understanding reading science and what our best practice is essential, but the artistry of building a relationship with our students to get that engagement is also key to seeing those reading scores increase. And it reminds me of the research that used to say attention, or does say attention is the gatekeeper to learning. So we see it there, sort of attention is up there, attention is impacting engagement, attention has, less than a half a point impact. You see that B is equal to 0.58 on our overall reading achievement outcome. But then came along those researchers who were interested in those non-cognitive pieces, that sense of belonging, my identity as a learner, my mindset is how I feel about learning. All of that is wrapped into motivation. So we have to have students motivated as a precursor to pay attention. And if those pieces are in place, then engagement is more likely to happen. And if engagement in learning takes place, then guess what? Those reading achievement scores are going to be incredibly meaningfully impacted. So I just want to finish this opportunity to share with you our outcomes for year 2 research with gray matter literacy to say, know your students, understand what motivates them, what really engages them in the work that you do with them, and that's going to have a significant impact in our students' reading outcomes. So thank you for your diligence in implementing NILD educational therapy, specifically gray matter literacy, in the way that you've been taught. We at the home office are continuing to think about how to equip our course instructors to make sure you feel comfortable using all of the gray matter literacy materials. Again, if you're working with a student 2nd year, 3rd year, don't get stuck in all those wonderful sound boxes and movable alphabet activities that focus on the basic decoding skills. Move your students higher up through the process of really engaging and thinking about oral reading, reading with fluency and pacing and understanding vocabulary. Get familiar with the reading comprehension strategies that we have for you in the NILD materials, specifically SOAR 2 and a lot in SOAR 3 as well. So thanks for taking your time to listen, and feel free to call the office if you have any questions. This PowerPoint will be shared with the video as well, so you'll have the resource to look through. And I look forward to even stronger year 3 research outcomes. Take care, everyone.